is happening tonight. We just had an executive session, and I can just tell you all what it was about. It was a quick and informal meeting with our board attorney, who provided a free service. I will say that again, a free service, through Pullman and Conley, the firm, on kind of roles and responsibilities, welcoming new members, just kind of an update for all of us. So that's where we've been for the last hour. So hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Welcome back. And please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So to keep things going, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent for some recognitions we have.
We are going to start with two seniors who are being recognized by the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. There's an annual award that recognizes them for leadership, academic achievements, and service to others in the community. We had a wonderful luncheon scheduled for last week on the snow day. It's been postponed to tomorrow, so we're kind of acknowledging them here today, and then they'll be acknowledged with students from 12 other high schools tomorrow. So I'm going to turn it right over to the high school staff to introduce you to the two students. Emma and Tom, if you would come down here when you're called. Well, why don't you come down here right now? You don't have to. Come on. On the live stream. There you go, perfect. And we're going to let the high school staff introduce you.
So it's my privilege to read a blurb about Emma that will also be in the program for our luncheon tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. Throughout her high school experience, Emma has challenged herself by increasing the rigor of her courses every year. She gets her work done consistently, seeks guidance when needed, and finds success in the classroom because of her motivation and intellect. The skills and growth that she has demonstrated throughout the past 4 years have well prepared her for a successful transition to college. Emma's exceptional personal characteristics have made her stand out academically. Meanwhile, her uniqueness has made her stand out socially. Emma's enthusiasm and leadership have carried over to her active participation as a student representative on the Board of Education, the Secretary of the National Honor Society, and the Treasurer of the Interact Club. Her dedication to each position has allowed for quality experiences, leading to the development of relationships with students and staff, enhancing her skills as a leader and growth into a mature high school student. Congratulations.
And I'm going to read about Tommy. Tommy is an exceptional leader, both in and out of the classroom. With a quick glance at his transcript, you would see that he is committed to excellence, having taken extremely challenging courses across the board. And as a result of your hard work and dedication, Thomas has received academic excellence and high honors all 4 years of high school, and is also a member of our National Honor Society. Outside of the classroom, Thomas puts his heart into everything that he participates in. His volunteer experiences include Unified Sports, NEASC, committee member, and the Salmon River Watershed Partnership. He also works part-time at various locations and local restaurants. As a 3-season athlete, Thomas has excelled in cross country, where he was named MVP and first team all-conference, indoor track all-conference, and outdoor track, where he earned Rookie of the Year in his freshman year. Congratulations also to Tommy.
Parents are welcome to come right down and get a nice close picture.
You want to introduce who you have here with you?
I have my grandparents, I have my family, my mom, my dad, my 2 brothers, and I have my godmother.
And I have my dad, stepdad, and my mom here.
Let's send it right on the bell.
Yeah, and I have Mr. Warner, are you not going to?
Yes.
They're going to be in it too.
Yes. Chris, everybody right in.
She went there first. There's stuff from every side.
Okay, and then I need one more. Thank you.
Look for this on Facebook tomorrow.
Good job, guys.
I'm going to turn the program over to our athletic director, Sean Russell, in just a moment, but I know most of the audience can appreciate this, but for our live stream audience, to be the state champion team and the champion runner on the team, that just doesn't happen. That is extraordinary work. It's extraordinary dedication. It means there's an extraordinary coach behind the team as well. And I know I speak on behalf of the board when I say how proud we are of the boys, state champion for Class SS, the girls, runner-up team for Class S, and to have Jake be the #1 runner in Class SS. That is just an outstanding feat for the school and for the team and for our coach and for the program as well. And I know I'm speaking to a friendly audience here, but I want to make sure people who watch this live stream understand that this is not just league. This is across the state. So this is a huge accomplishment and one that we celebrate with banner, with jackets, with a trophy. So let me turn it over to Sean. I probably said everything he was going to say. But if the team would come down here, because you deserve to be on the camera on the live stream. Come right down.
Working on leadership voices now. Introduce yourselves.
And maybe we could start right here, and if you would introduce yourself to the board, and tell us what year in school you are as well.
Okay, hi, I'm Benjamin Vasquez, and I'm a freshman this year.
I'm Benjamin Weiser. I'm a freshman.
I'm Brendan Owen, I'm a junior.
I'm Alexandra McMillan, and I'm a junior.
I'm Tommy Lopes, I'm a senior.
I'm Jake Ireland, I'm also a senior.
I'm Luke Magee, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Philip Wentworth, I'm a senior.
I'm Nathan Ireland, I'm a freshman.
I'm Jaden Aslar, I'm a freshman.
I'm RJ Stanford, and I'm a freshman.
Sam Gibson, I'm a junior.
I'm Daniel Leake, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Adam Birkenstock, and I'm a junior.
Bill Wilkie, and I'm just a coach.
Do we have anyone from the girls' team here tonight?
Senior.
Come right down here, please. And if you would introduce yourself.
I'm Shay Thibodeau, I'm a freshman.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. Mr. Russell.
Yeah, well, you stole my thunder.
I'm sorry.
He's excited.
To use your word, it was an extraordinary introduction. This is a great group of young men. Coach Wilkie has done a tremendous job here, coaching the cross-country team since way back in the last century, 1998, when he started. He and I used to share an office back in the old high school, the old boys' locker room, so we've been together a long time. Bill is certainly a master coach at this level, and this group of young men has done an extraordinary job this year. We've been training hard for several months, training long, training together, and this is definitely a group accomplishment. Regardless of how many boys are allowed to participate in that last race, this is the labor of all these young men throughout the year. The girls program had a tremendous job as well, and if we could display this, we'll be going up in the gym this week later. Nice and hot.
And Jake, we do have a plaque for you. But I'll let Mr. Goff, our board chair, hand it to you. But I think what's more exciting is your name will be on our state championship banner, I think later in the spring when we update all the banners.
Yeah. Congratulations.
If you want to come front and center and take a picture or two.
And while you're doing that, I have to ask, what was your time?
My winning time?
Yeah.
16:33.
Yeah, I won't even say.
Just a few seconds off your best.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Parents, don't be shy. Come on, this is it. Look at those blue jackets. You look great in the jacket. Take a look at the jacket.
Paul, the jackets were supplied for the team by the Sports Boosters.
So a special thank you to our Sports Booster Club for providing the jackets. Don't let them get you wet on the way home.
Okay.
One more round of applause for our Coach, is there anything you'd like to add? We should give you a moment.
Oh, God. I've been talking about these guys for the last 6 weeks. And every time I get a chance to do that, it's always a pleasure because, as everybody's been saying, it's a great group of kids to work with. Whether we won or not, this was a special year for this program. It's been a crew that's bonded, and it's been a crew that's worked hard. And sometimes things work out on your side, and some years they don't. But this year, everything really fell into place, and everybody here contributed tremendously to make that happen. It's been fun. Everyone's looking forward to next year. Maybe not the seniors, but the rest of us are looking forward to next year.
Excellent. Congratulations again.
I love those we were talking about. We'll give everyone a minute to clear. Yeah, I know. Yes. I did cross country when I was here, and that's why I had to ask, I know it wasn't that good. I know. No, I think I made it under the 20. But that's yeah.
So when you start talking, I'm going to go back to it.
All right, we're good.
Yes, and I have the. Yeah, I'll share it. No.
Okay. All right, we are moving on. Interboard liaisons. I see we have one member of the Board of Finance here and audience citizen, but we'll separate that. Board of Finance, any message? I know you guys are meeting next Monday night.
Want to take a look at the annual meeting?
Okay. And on that note, I'll say Interboard, tomorrow evening is the tri-board meeting with Town Council, Board of Finance, and ourselves here in this room at 6:30. So it's going to set the tone and the pace for the upcoming budget season. So tomorrow night, 6:30. Labor Union, none here.
No.
Oh, there you are. I'm sorry.
Sean Quinn, Vice President of East Hampton Education Association.
Sorry.
Nothing to report at this time, but I just wanted to stop and say hello and look forward to working with you guys over the next few years.
Good. Thank you. Now I'll go over to Mary for any updates.
Sure. Last week on Tuesday, when there was some cold weather, a group of administrators and teacher leaders from the district were able to come in on Tuesday afternoon and host 25, what'd you say?
24.
24 administrators from the Guangdong province of China, who were here really to look very carefully at how professional learning and evaluation works for teachers here in East Hampton. They were doing a tour across the state of Connecticut and visiting a variety of school districts, large districts, magnet districts, independent schools, I believe. And so we were very fortunate, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Gonzalez, myself, as well as Joey Bauer from the middle school, Andrea Winarski, K-5 Math and Science Specialist, and Regina Delavolpe from East Hampton High School. Just really want to recognize all of those folks who took time to come in, and we had a great time really getting to talk with them and share our experiences here in East Hampton, and it's exciting to hear about the experiences there as well. And there was, according to one of they were, many of them staff developers, not building administrators. They worked directly coaching teachers, so they had a lot of questions about that. And a couple of them were telling me that one of the most famous teacher trainers in all of China was among their group, and they were like, it's a big deal. So it was exciting. Also last week, Paul and I had the opportunity to present at the New England Associations of Schools and Colleges, or the NEASC conference in Boston, just outside of Boston actually. So we were able to present on East Hampton's profile of the graduate. It was selected as a model profile and one to be shared with teachers, superintendents, building administrators from across the New England region. And so it was really exciting. We were partnered with another district from Massachusetts and talking about our different approaches to the work around the profile of the graduate. And I think the district model that we've adopted, really looking at how a child progresses through different stages as a person and in their academic career, and that we've tried to match our profile to that. We talked about sort of a 4-year implementation process, and we're still learning, but many districts are just beginning and struggling with where to begin, so it was exciting to engage them in conversation about that. In the buildings, we have a lot of work right now. You often hear, for those of you who are new to the board, you'll hear from me a lot about our district performance in relation to our peers across the state. And we have summative assessments that we give annually every May that help determine that. But we have a lot of structures and routines that we engage with throughout the school year to prepare our teachers and our students for those assessments and to ensure our instruction is aligned to the highest of standards for teaching and learning, which if we do that, the assessments should take care of themselves. So we're in the process now of really mapping out the rest of the year for our math, literacy, and science assessment processes. So that's coming together quite nicely. For those of you who we've already had a chance to talk to about foundations, our primary phonics program that we've launched K1, we have next week, second grade teachers going to visit classrooms at the kindergarten and first grade level to see that work in action, as we hope to continue to expand that to second and third grade. And we, our primary responsibility is the wellness of our students and their teaching and learning, and so we're in the process at this time of year in particular. There's a lot of data conversations going on where we're checking in on student performance. At the elementary level, we've recently had conferences, which I'm sure administrators will talk about, but the teachers do further analysis of the measures that they have on students at this time, so we can make sure we're on track to year-end goals. So that's a big focus in the academic arena right now. So just a little bit of what's going on.
Okay. Questions for me? Schools. Who wants to go first? High school. There you go.
High school. So we've had a very busy stretch since our last meeting before Thanksgiving. This past Saturday, I'm working with the Rotary and Track Club. We had our annual breakfast with Santa, and Mr. Warner was able to bring his kids up here and get their picture taken. So it's a great opportunity for
with a big smile.
Event at school. This coming Friday the 13th, which is ironic, we have our annual, or one of our semi-annual blood drive, sponsored by our Working Student Council.
Nice.
Poetry Out Loud competition, the classroom level winners. I put it in my newsletter. For those of you that haven't read it yet this week, it's in there. And they will be competing to have grade level winners next week during X Block, and in late January, after Mr. O'Donnell has a nice tutoring session and coaching session with them, we'll have our school-wide winner, which will then be entered into the state level competition. I believe that is January 29th, sounds about right, but it's on our calendar. And next Friday, after surviving my first pep rally, will be our annual winter sports pep rally. So we're looking forward to that before we head home for vacation. And finally, as Mary said, the high school is working through its cycle, so we're working on our 2-year report, and our teachers have been working really hard using PLC time during the week and our professional development time to respond to some of the recommendations from our previous NEAS. So busy time, please.
Right. So I'll you.
At middle school, the Early Acts Club is busy at it again. Trish Seeley and Early Acts set up a fundraiser for the ABC Women's Shelter. And what they do, they collected over $500, and they're going to be purchasing some gifts for 7 of the children of women that work with the shelter. It was a really nice gesture. Yoga Club from Mr. Fielding's better half. It started at middle school. It was really cool to watch the kids in the library all spread out and have Victoria kind of giving them an introduction to yoga. I think they had over 25 students participating. And they're going to be doing it I think another 5 or 6 times over the course of the winter. In an effort to make lemonade with the lemons of our study hall situation, this is Fielding, Christine Fielding in the library has taken on over 40 student volunteers to really assist her in the library and teach them some of the ins and outs of library media specialist work. The kids were phenomenal. There was actually a day she was out sick, and they were able to really support her efforts and maintain students being able to not only take out books, but to get suggestions from some of the kids who have just done some exceptional amounts of reading. So they're doing a really, really nice job. PJ Day is going to be this Friday for not only, I think, the middle school, center school, and you guys are doing it Friday?
Yes, we are.
Friday?
Back to back, Friday and Monday.
Oh, man.
A lot of pajamas.
You just got to make sure they change them. They might just wear the same. And with any luck, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but Adam Rivers from KC 101 was advertising that he wanted to know where PJ Days were going to occur. So I gave him a call, and he said he's going to do his best to try to get out here with an association with Dunkin' Donuts and try to visit all our schools. So that would be really neat. Lastly, thank you for those that were able to attend. We had, I think, about 10 parents, 4, 5, 6 staff members come to our parent breakfast last Friday. It was supposed to be an hour long to discuss grading, to discuss SECs, to discuss Parent Square, and it ended up lasting about 2.5 hours. It was a very rich conversation. We had a lot of good snacks, had a lot of good fun, and it was a nice way to open up some lines of communication. That's all.
Nice.
Right. Center School concert this Wednesday. School's very excited. First concert as Center School band director.
Yeah.
So the band will take place at 6 o'clock. It's Hampton High School, or Brandon Auditorium, and the band will be at 6:45. So 6 o'clock chorus, 6:45 band. The Invention Convention kickoff took place today, and the second round of that will take place tomorrow. So that's to really gauge the interest and kind of make sure that students are excited about that process, which is always a hallmark of the Center School experience. They'll hand in some forms before the break, and we kick that off as soon as they come back from their vacation. We have a Deck the Halls Writing Celebration, which will take place next Thursday. It's informational reading and feature article writing. So there are 2 different sessions for that, 9:30 to 11:30, December 19th that morning, and 1:30 to 2:45 in the afternoon. So you'll see some informational writing articles that will be on display throughout the halls of Center School. We also received some great news today. I always look for different grants out there to support instruction at Center School, in the STEM lab specifically. So PW Power Systems out of Glastonbury awarded us a $2,500 grant.
Good job.
And at Memorial, as Mrs. Clark had already shared, conferences for last week, so we're third into the year. Andy and I are very proud of our team and the efforts that go into partnering with families to communicate the learning that's happened up to this point, the strengths, and then really focus on continued growth and setting goals with families to achieve those. Today was Magical Monday at Memorial, and the pictures are already up on Facebook. It's really incredibly fun, special. There were more bow ties and neckties than we've ever seen in our student body, and we're going to follow this on Friday with PJ for the kids. So we're going to start off dressed for dinner on Monday and dressed down in our PJs on Friday. The third graders have received their recorders, which is always super exciting because they
Wait, that's you.
That's me. Thank you. I've been in the music room for fun quite a few times this weekend. There's quite a few squeaks, but in just a few weeks, it's amazing to see what their progress is. And Sarah Maldonado, our music teacher, really does a terrific job encouraging them to practice at home so that they see the more effort they put into it with that growth mindset, the better they're able to play in a kind of hurry. The snow makes it feel like December, so there's all kinds of winter things going on in our building, inside and outside. There's been tons of snow sculptures, and that's gone for today, Mr. Smith, but who knows what Wednesday morning will bring. And then I'd just like to give a shout out to our PTO, who has just been relentlessly busy in our building with all kinds of special things. So this week they're running a holiday shop, which allows all of our students the opportunity to shop for their family members and surprise their family members. Friday night they're running bingo for our school community. And so that's the one.
Chris, if I can just add, while we have this picture up, and since he's in the audience, special thank you to Don Howard. When we were talking at 4:45 on Tuesday morning, I said, Don, I have a coach bus of Chinese professionals who are going to spend the afternoon with us, and obviously Don made sure that the custodial staff had everything salted and cleared and ready for their visit. And like Mary said, a special thank you to the teachers who we asked to present, who came in and took the time to present them. We had a great afternoon from about noon to 4 o'clock with some great professional conversations. It's remarkable because some of them do speak English, but our presenters are giving a couple sentences, then it's being translated by their translator, and then a couple more sentences, and then it's being translated, and you can see them nodding and asking questions, and it's just a great cultural exchange. And it's funny because they're very professional here, but then when they did dinner at my house, and I always warn my neighbors that a coach bus is going to pull up on the street, so don't be alarmed. They're singing and having a grand old time because my wife is playing the piano. So it's a different side of the culture, but just as enjoyable. One quick note to board members, the annual party that you throw for employees is next Tuesday the 17th from 2:30 to 5:30. I have to let you know that the center school, since you selected the middle school last year as the most spirited school, and we buy them a lunch for that. The center school, who had won it previous for several years, felt that they needed to up their game, and since September, they've been planning how they're going to beat the middle school this year.
Oh, we got
so just to note that there should be some great school spirit. High school's usually a little more casual about it, and Memorial School usually comes in all excited but unorganized. They've got their own issues in their classrooms during these December days.
They have plans.
But we've invited other town officials, so Board of Ed members, 2:30 to 5, please join us in the cafeteria, since it's your party that you are throwing.
It's fun. Yep, it's fun. And since you mentioned Don and Rodney and Karen are here, any updates from any of you? Any comments? Okay. Audience of citizens, we have a few. Any comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bob Hine, 19 Brooksford Road. I'm also a member of the Board of Finance. So just want to highlight what was already mentioned, that tomorrow would be like the official start of the budget process for the three boards sitting down together. So anybody in the town that has any thoughts they'd like to add, or any programs they'd like to push, or maybe even something they'd like to get rid of, it's time for them to step up, let us know what their thought process is, and help the three boards come together around a budget that we can all live with.
And that's in this room at 6:30, Tuesday night, December 10th. Tomorrow.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Here or none. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion.
Amanda. Second.
Second.
Mark. Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Updates. Here we go. Emma, again, can speak. And Robert.
Alright, so winter athletics started last week. Games and meets will be starting soon for girls and boys basketball, indoor track, wrestling, and now the hockey team. As far as extracurriculars, Spanish Club is running their annual Candy Grams fundraiser this week in order to raise money and spread positivity during the holidays. And the junior class completed their Yankee Candle fundraiser after a long process of boxes being delayed. So they finished, so the fundraiser was completed, and funds are going to be used to reduce the cost of the upcoming DC trip next year.
And the senior dinner was 2 weeks ago now, but everyone that attended had a really good time. As Mr. Werner said before, the student council has the blood drive planned for this Friday, which is very exciting. And then the pep rally is next week, and the student council is working on planning the spirit days and the actual pep rally. And Interact Club has been hosting the ABC Women's Center holiday gift drive, so every homeroom has gotten all their gifts in, and we'll be wrapping them on Wednesday.
Okay. Personnel has not met. Policy and curriculum has not met either. No. Finance, transportation, building, grounds. Was there a meeting set yet?
Rosemarie will be setting a meeting. It'd probably be easier to do it just after the holidays at this point, that first week back. That'll be prior to the budget presentation on Monday the 13th.
Learn. We have Amy as our Learn representative.
Thursday's my first meeting.
Thursday, yep. Yep. Good. And of course, nothing with the building committee. Superintendent. Update report. Capital.
We are going to start with a presentation by your Director of Technology, Mr. Rich Fielding, and he's going to tell you some of the items in his capital plan. I know this is small looking at the screens, but there is a copy at your place. There are some extra copies on the table here if audience members cannot see the screen.
Thank you, everyone. I wanted to thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I think our process for capital is sometimes a little hard to follow, so I thought I'd just give you a quick overview that the departments in the school, Don Harwood, myself, Karen, put together items that we bring to the capital committee at the town, as does the Public Works, Police Department, and other town agencies. The capital committee is comprised of members from the Board of Ed, Town Council, Board of Finance, Town Manager, Finance Director. They review all of the items, decide what should be in there, what shouldn't be in there, and then send that forward to the Board of Finance. Board of Finance then sends that forward to the Town Council to become part of the final town's budget, not part of the Board of Ed's budget. And then it goes to referendum as part of the town's budget. So there's a number of steps along the way where items that go into capital can be adjusted, can come out. I think one of the things that's important, especially from my standpoint, trying to plan in advance, I like to have a 5-year plan for technology, since many of the devices that we work with have an expected lifespan of about 5 years. So when I'm buying a device this year, I can kind of predict that in 5 years I'm going to be replacing it again. So hopefully that's when we're looking to purchase devices, that's what we're looking for. That doesn't stay the same with all technology. Some items such as smart boards, network switches, part of our infrastructure, can go anywhere from 8 to 10 years. Sometimes can even push a little bit beyond that. But typical items like Chromebooks, teacher laptops, desktops, the computers you see in the offices, those have an average of about a 5-year lifespan. 3 years ago, when the Capital Committee requested from me to create a 5-year plan for them, what I did at that point was I surveyed about a dozen other school districts to find out what they used as their replacement plan cycle for all those devices that I just listed. And so the year expectancies that I just gave you were based on that data that I received back from my cohort districts. So when we got that information together, and knowing that a Chromebook, which is a device that which is a simplified laptop that we have in the hands of students around the district, when those are created by the manufacturers with Google's approval, they know from the time they start building them that they will have a 6-year lifespan and then Google will stop supporting software for it. So unlike Windows, where you could have bought a computer 10 years ago and had Windows 7 on it, and it still has Windows 7 on it, Google updates their operating system every 6 weeks to a new version. So over the course of the year, you can have approximately 8 or 9 full operating system updates to it. So they can't really let it go more than 4 or 5 years, or 5 or 6 years. And then that 6-year lifespan really begins at the time they start manufacturing them. When we buy them, they could be anywhere from 8 months to 1.5 years old at that point. So when we buy them, we look at that date, and I build that into my capital plan for 5 years. So where we are right now is looking at what technology we want to suggest to the capital committee goes into our budget for next year. I should have actually put this in reverse, but I thought it was important for you to kind of see how last year's technology that wasn't funded ends up impacting this year's technology that we're asking for. So last year, our initial ask for capital funding was about $311,000 for Chromebooks, for teacher laptops in K through 5, and by the time the initial capital committee approved all but about $10,000 worth of that, Board of Finance approved all of what came to them and brought to the town council, and then the town council cut $300,000 from the Board of Ed's component of the capital plan, which happened to match the amount that was technology, and the superintendent was able to cut from other areas in order to secure $72,000 to pay for some of our highest priority items that we had in the capital plan. So if you look at the top section of this or on your sheets, you'll see the items in black are the items we were able to purchase. And even when you look at the items that we were able to purchase, you'll notice that the third line was actually items that had been deferred from the previous year and became some of our highest priority items, because those were the devices that were allowing us to have a one-to-one Chromebook to student program here at the high school. And when we looked across the board at where our highest priority to maintain that one-to-one was at the high school, secondarily was the middle school, and then pushing down in the grade levels. But we had to make a hard decision to decide whether or not to maintain the one-to-one program at the high school or a one-to-one program at the middle school this year, and opted to keep the one-to-one at the high school going, since it's pretty much there are very few high schools in the state that don't have a one-to-one program at this time. And we ended up having to eliminate the one-to-one program at the 6th grade at the middle school through some use of devices that had been the previous year's seniors' devices that had been purchased as replacement devices for failed devices. We were able to move those devices down and create 2 carts worth of Chromebooks in the 6th grade for this year. So those, actually I'll wait till I get to the next slide to explain it that a little bit. Anyways, for this year, you can see that under the 2021, what we're looking for is to continue funding our one-to-one program for the 6th and 9th graders. We are also at a point where our infrastructure, this is that thing I was saying comes due every 10 years. Our infrastructure for the Memorial Center School and Middle School, which means all of the network switches, save for a couple at Memorial, and then all of the wireless access points that provide wireless internet throughout the buildings are all coming end of life in June of 2021. So at the very end of our fiscal year, they are coming end of life. I talked to our vendor's name is Meraki, they're owned by Cisco. They have told me that when they become end of life, we are able to still purchase licenses for the devices, which means they keep on functioning, but we get no support on them if there's any failures. It's a full buyout of a new device, which means we won't be eligible for any reimbursement, because typically when we buy devices for that, we can get some reimbursement. And then also any new functionality that are added to devices, they will not be included, and any new features of management that we use for those devices, they would not fall under that. And then that lifespan is only another year or two out before they will not support even the licenses for them. So that's the switches and wireless. And then we have this issue where all of the Chromebooks in our K through 5 schools, we had wanted to replace many of the devices last year and were unable to because they were end of life. We ended up having to recycle many of the devices that really should have gone end of life down to our lowest grades where they don't have to take the SBAC test. And so the devices that are there are unable to. We did a lot of Chromebook shuffling around over the summer just to keep as many devices functional in the K through 5 environment. Unfortunately, it's a matter of moving devices around that we knew had a finite lifespan that are all going end of life by the end of this year. So if you look on that fifth line, we have the K through 5 Chromebooks. You'll see Dell 3120s, HP G3s, Lenovo N21s. Those are all devices that are going end of life this year. If you look further down, you'll see the K through 5 Chromebooks. Those devices all went end of life last year and do not receive updates anymore, even though they're still in the classrooms, will not run SBAC, and are pretty much running on about a 1 or 2 hour battery lifespan before they have to get plugged back into the carts. New devices go anywhere from 8 to 10 hours.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, Mike.
So based on what we're proposing, we're talking about purchasing 750 Chromebooks for the K through 5 students.
Yes.
So that's a significant number.
Yes.
So what I'm getting from that is that basically every Chromebook we have that we use in the K through 5 is end of life, more or less.
Yes.
Right.
That's right.
So that means we haven't really bought Chromebooks for those students in 5 to 6 years.
That's right.
Okay, so I just want everybody to hear that.
I don't know if we ever bought them specifically for those kids. They were hand-me-downs, right?
Many were purchased. No, there were some purchased at some point for some of the carts, and I am doing some, but many of these devices were purchased through PTO funds. PTO used to do a lot of buying of Chromebooks for the schools, and that is, we get to a point where that's not a sustainable model because there's other things that that they're funding, and I thank them greatly for all of the devices that they did buy, but it's not something, when you look at these numbers and how we've gotten to where we are, it's not really a sustainable model for us. But yes, thanks.
Yeah.
Are any Chromebooks from high school going to be able to go down to the K through 5 grades at the end of this year, or are they also?
So possibly, very likely, a small number will be able to. What ends up happening is at the end of the school year, we really find out how those devices held up. There's a lot of, especially upperclassmen, who have devices that may not bring them to school because they don't work, they're damaged, and instead they're using their cell phone or they bring their own device in. And then a lot of the devices are end of life. At this point, they're seniors, the devices that they have are fairly old. And so we don't expect, when we plan, I plan to maybe get 25 or 30 out of the graduating class that can then more than likely get redistributed back into the high school for devices from the freshmen through juniors who devices aren't worth repairing because of damages to those. So over the summer, we do a lot of work just rebalancing and reshuffling all of the devices that are working that don't have a home for next year. But it's hard for us to get a sense of what that looks like until the end of the school year.
But that's also dependent on what gets approved in this, and that's, you know, doubly bad this year because the sixth grade was not funded. So now we're looking at sixth and seventh grade not funded. So, and those that have to take priority over moving down to K-5.
So in a typical year when we're not like trying to backfill, not funding them the year before, how many grades do we need to fund every year?
So if you don't mind, if I could wait to
Okay.
answer that question till the second slide, because I talk about kind of like keeping a year-to-year balanced budget year to year rather than big budget, small budget, big budget, small budget. So that's the matter.
I don't know if this also gets reviewed or whatever in a later slide, but you had mentioned right at the beginning when you started speaking about how this goes into the capital budget as opposed to the Board of Ed budget.
Yes.
I feel like there are people who don't understand that process and feel like it's a Board of Ed expense, it should be in the Board of Ed budget. Now the capital fund, as I understand it, like agencies, as you said, agencies from all over town. And this is one of the agencies, even though it's got its own budget. I'm assuming like probably Public Works has its own budget and, you know, the police department has its own budget, but then they put some things into capital. How is that decision process? Like, I don't know if you can maybe just review that a little bit.
So I can't speak to the exact numbers, and maybe Mark or Paul or Karen can even, but if I could do a simple version of it, it would be that any program or device that costs over a certain amount, I think it's somewhere in the range of $20,000, it goes into the capital budget and goes through all these different levels of scrutiny for appropriateness. And then additional to that would be when you're looking at things, especially Mr. Harwood's things that he's going to bring forward are really like items, a roof that's going to last 20 years or floor tile that's going to last 40 years, you know, things that have a lifespan that goes beyond, and, you know, smart boards and projectors and things of that nature can go 8 to 10 years and Chromebooks and laptops and desktops have an expense value that overwhelms $20,000. It goes well past that. So I think that is where we end up going to look at capital. And on top of that, the school district doesn't have the ability to easily finance items. So if we want to look at Chromebooks and we want to buy $300,000 worth of them, it's going to be a hard sell for us to put $300,000 in our budget one year. The town can take that capital and can spread the cost out over 5 years and say, so you know, we're going to take the debt of $300,000 this year, but then we're actually going to pay for it $60,000 each of the next 5 years.
So to your point, so if we're buying a new dump truck, that's going to be a capital request from the Public Works. They'll have their operating budget, which is really their norm. Really think of it as an operating budget. Their day-to-day operations of how they do things. The same with the police department. So if if we're buying additional cruisers, then that's going to be part of the capital budget. So pretty much every department within the town, whether it's Board of Ed or within the town operations, has an operating piece and then some components of capital.
And it has to do with the financing of large amounts of money.
There's a capital policy, and Rich touched on it. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what the dollar amount, but
It's been revised a couple times in the last few years. I think they're constantly looking at their own policy to revise, especially since bifurcation happened and the school's kind of on
that's
own.
One of the, when people talk at budget time about, almost like we shouldn't be going to capital because we have our own budget. And I think there's a lack of understanding about what does that mean.
That's kind of how I started out too. The process is very,
maybe a repeat and a review.
It's very cloudy.
So thank you for that.
And I know when the one-on-one started, and Karen, you can help me or Paul, I think the direction from the town finance director was that it needs to be a capital item.
Well, even the capital committee discussed it last year about the Chromebooks, and it was agreed among the capital members, Chromebooks will stay in capital.
How
been financed, or have we paid for them in another manner?
I think most times we've purchased, they've been leased. But I'd have to confirm that with Jeff.
So if we, hypothetically, if we did keep them in our budget, what does that process look like to go get something leased?
Well, again, I think that creates a little bit of a problem from a functionality standpoint. You know, logistically, can we do it as a Board of Education? I'm not sure that we can. Again, those are conversations we have to have with Jeff. This is to me, this is one of the nuances of a bifurcation, but within the system we still have. Yes, we have a bifurcated budget, but the Board of Ed budget does not stand alone solely from Board of Ed to town voters. It still runs through the Board of Finance. It still runs through the town council. So even if we wanted to say, hey, we're going to put all of our capital projects in our own budget and have a means of, let's say we weren't financing it in some means, we're just going to pay for it based on the appropriation we got from the town. Well, the Board of Finance and the town council still have their say in that process. So we really don't have the ability to completely separate ourselves and say, this is the Board of Ed budget, leave us alone and let the town vote for it. The bifurcation structure isn't perfect, perfectly bifurcated.
Is this something we're going to talk about in the Finance Subcommittee before it goes to the capital meeting?
We were supposed to have a capital meeting on December 4th.
They're supposed to be one on the 4th.
It was canceled. They have not rescheduled.
Right.
But understand, if you were to say, well, let's put $500,000 into the Board of Education budget to cover it, you've increased us 1.8% on top of whatever the superintendent will be asking for. So it's going to look like a very large increase to all parties. Even though we would be explaining that it was from capital, now what you've done in year one is you've created a larger increase than we've seen over the last 3 years, just in capital.
My
Expenses
concern
transfer.
is really the consistency. I mean, if we're asking teachers to develop and Mary to develop a curriculum that is supported by the Chromebooks, and then they're not getting funded year to year, this is just creating a ton of chaos. And I know, I just think at some point, we've got to make a decision on, is this, especially in the middle school, something that we're going to stand behind and take a stand and support?
So, you know, I mean, the challenge,
Before we get too far, maybe let Rich finish his part, but go ahead. No.
Well, you know, if I could kind of get through this slide and then move on to the next, I think some of the items I have on the next slide might help inform that discussion a little bit as well, or might add to that discussion.
We'll come back.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to cut it off. But.
Sorry. And then items that were cut from last year. And while they're at the bottom, they are probably even a higher priority. We have laptops for the teachers at the Center and Memorial Schools. Currently, the teachers are using desktops that are approaching their 8th year that were running Windows 7 up until the summer. When we didn't get the funding for their laptops, we had to scrape together memory from all of the machines the student use machines that were in the classrooms to take memory out, to double up memory in the teacher computers, and buy additional memory from our supplies budget in order to be able to upgrade all of them to Windows 10. Once they've been upgraded to Windows 10, now much of the software that was on them for their interactive whiteboards and interactive projectors works, but not well because the computers are slow and interactive screens need fast responsive processing, and that's what they don't have. So those are still on at least my own personal top priority level, because teachers with laptops is a standard educational practice that we are now supporting at our high school and middle school and should be supporting at our elementary schools as well. I also have in there our content filter and reporter. And Chromebooks for the 7th grade, since they didn't get them in 6th grade. That would actually come before Chromebooks for 6th graders. It would be the 7th graders for the devices that they didn't get this year. Content filter and reporter, that's the device that keeps the kids safe on the internet throughout the district. It also keeps track of all activity that goes on our network, going out to the internet, keeps kids from going from inappropriate sites. It also allows us to do all sorts of keyword detection, so students who may be troubled in searching things that we would want an adult to intervene around. Those are the types of reports that I get because of the iBoss content filter. It went end of life last year. When I talked to the vendor last year about replacing it, I had a quote to replace it for basically the same setup that we have now for $25,000. When I told them that we didn't, what was our fallback plan, they said, well, you will be able to license it for 1 more year. Again, if hardware fails on it, you're out of luck, but we'll still provide updates at least for you. So new websites that come out, your iBoss will be updated every night so that it can continue to block inappropriate websites for the kids as new websites come out, which is a fairly often thing to happen. And then lastly, SAN/VM server upgrades. Those are the servers, and the SAN is the storage area network. It's the big hard drive that all of our servers sit on over in the closet in the corner. It was all put in over during the building project, and it is just one of those things in IT that will continue to require attention, requires software and hardware updates so that it can expand, so that it can stay resilient. And so the cost of that was $20,000 last year. It's $30,000 this year. A couple of the items that were on this list that have come off was due to our migration. We had an email archiving and spam filtering system. Since that wasn't funded, we had to really advance our plans to move all of our email to the cloud. So we no longer host an Exchange server in-house, which hosts all the email. Instead, that's in Office 365. By doing that, we've actually lightened the load on our infrastructure for our servers. So if I were to put anything, if I were to have to create 2 priorities on all of these devices, I would create everything in priority 1 and the SAN VM server upgrades in priority 2, only because there is software that I can update that will help to figure out how to best utilize the space that we do have left. All right, can I get to the next slide? Thank you. So when I first created the 5-year plan for the capital committee, if you look in the top original request items, I wasn't able to do an exact balanced budget for each year because we had those big expenses for devices that were going end of life. So what I did instead was I put it out there for 5 years and said that on average for the next 5 years we would need $246,000. First year was 122, 310, and then it kind of went up and down. So if you think of an average budget, if we were to balance this out, that would be the amount. And then after 5 years, it would recur. Most of the devices bought in the first year, and plus a couple others, would then come back up, come due. So in the first year though, the amount funded was only $66,000. We were able to fund the rest of that year's budget with the late addition of funding. Paul, I'm not exactly sure how that $140,000 came about. The story behind that is much too long. I've already spoke longer than I should have. So I won't go into too much detail on that, but that was not ended up being funded through capital, although that was the original goal of it. Last year we requested $311,000. The amount funded was $72,000. Almost the entire amount that wasn't funded is now in this year's budget. So now we're looking at a request of $571,000. Rather than what it would have originally been of $318,000 with a more balanced recurring schedule. If you look at the last 2 years, the actual funding that was approved was on average $69,000 instead of $246,000. And then the results of what happened because of the initial cut and the first year, there was tons of delays in us actually getting the product out to students. We like to buy everything that we can on July 1st, but if we don't have a budget until June 24th or whatever the case may be, and we don't get all of our orders in, devices come late, we don't have time to deploy before school starts, teacher devices don't go out till November. That's kind of what happened at the middle school last year. And then this year, the list of things that have been affected due to the shortfalls in the funding is, I tried to summarize here. I'm not going to go through it line item by line item because that would just take too long. And I think you have the information there in front of you. And I just want to make sure you have that information, that when these cuts were made and the items were deferred, it wasn't just, oh, well, everything's still fine this year and we'll make it all up next year when we get a big budget. No, the impact has been great. It has been shared across the district. And if we aren't able to right size it for next year, it's going to look a lot worse when we don't have devices K through 7. So I realize that this board doesn't actually own a lot of this, because this really goes directly to the capital committee from the schools, and I just request for your support behind it if questions do come up and you do have the answers now to why it is the way it is and why the amount is so great, and hope that you'll come out to support it when the time comes. And thank you. I apologize for taking so much.
No, that's fine. No.
And Don is going to give you an update as to the other items in capital, which does give you an update on technology, but we have other items. This is at your place as well.
No, it wasn't. No, we didn't.
If it's not, there's copies on the table.
I'll pass them.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. Hi, Don. No, I haven't even looked at it yet. Do I want to? Good. Oh, is there any more of those you have, Mary?
No, but certainly I can. There's another copy here.
Oh, do you need one?
Oh, yeah, if you would, thank you.
Sure, of course.
Thanks so much.
Yep, those are the two. That's the technology one we were just discussing. And this is going to be what the buildings and exchanges that
Yes.
he was just explaining what it was. We'd asked for what we got, and the administrator passed on that. Yeah.
Maybe we can name that. See, so do we use it personally to make sure that is
Oh, geez, there's a little typo in it. We can take care of that.
Can you imagine Chris will still be the chairman when that hits?
What? What did I do?
No problem. So, a couple items in front of you in a paper copy. I did not make a copy of the 5-year projection that I put together for facilities capital. So you have that. Sorry, I don't have it here. It'd be small on the screen anyways. But let's just go through a couple of key considerations, similar to what I did last year. You know, you've got about 320,000 square feet in real estate that the Board of Ed has responsibility for. You got 120,000 square feet here. It's a good-sized building. I always refer to it as a REIT. I mean, this is a real estate investment trust, but it's a municipally funded trust. I mean, that's basically what it is. No different than your house, I mean, in many respects. It's just bigger, it's commercial, and you have to maintain it. The challenge is maintaining it with pretty small capital investment year on year. So we got an aging infrastructure. Obviously, this school is beautiful. Walk around, you'll see, though, you know, it's already starting to show signs of wear. You just walk through the hallways, you know, it's starting to show signs of wear. You've got to be proactive, and we have to have ongoing investments really to make a difference. I really just wanted to go through a couple pictures, and I think that really sums it up very quickly for everybody, is that, you know, if you look, one of the items that we've been really pushing the past couple of years is asbestos abatement testing and monitoring. And it's very pricey every time we touch a floor, especially over at Center School. But we've really transformed Center School. And if you've been over there, I see a lot of heads nodding. It's visible. I mean, it's extremely visible. And I think it takes on a whole different meaning for education in that building. When you don't go in and it's that dreary old, 1950s appearance, like your grandmother's house with the, pink tile and stuff like that, and the plastic over the furniture when I was a kid, so. But as you can see, so to the left is just, we were doing some abatement this past summer, so, it's, people have to stay off, we're refloating the floor. You've got tile that I'm sure everybody has in their kitchen. And then the main corridor was in the pinks and blues, and those things, those are done. Those aren't really where we are. And that's actually a real floor to the right. So that's really, pretty poor. And so first and second floor, and then you look, the bottom left-hand corner is actually the second floor of center school. And what telltale sign is that's a 9x9 tile, and that's typically an asbestos tile. When it's 9" by 9". They were still doing that. When they got into the 12" for a couple of years, they were, but then they moved on. But it's a good way to say, that's asbestos. You kind of guarantee you have it. This is tough because that light we should control differently, I suspect. This I wanted to show really to give you an idea. Oh, look at that. He's been there before. So, it makes a huge difference. That picture in the top left is the old floor. Come summertime, when we did abatement, to the right is when they floated the floor because there's a lot of moisture that comes up through the concrete at the center school. And the moisture causes a lot of degradation with the tile. And that's why, it was all buckled and everything, so they had to refloat the floor. The bottom is what it is now. Look at the difference. I mean, it's absolutely night and day. So, what a difference that corridor makes. We put in some LED lighting on the first floor, a new floor, painted the walls, and Chris's staff did some nice artwork and lettering on the walls. It is classy. That hall, you wouldn't know you were in the building that's as old as it is. Same thing, as you come into the main door, and again, you just see that's, the floor was torn up and you float it, and now all of a sudden you've got a brand new floor. It really changes. So what does that really mean? Because this is a budget discussion. From a capital perspective, every time we touch an area, you're 10 grand in abatement cost. I mean, you just can, 10 grand, just throw that out there every time. By the time you do a testing, monitoring, and abatement, it's a starting point, it's like 10 grand, no matter what you touch. Go ahead.
Is the majority of the asbestos and abatement and testing just at center school? I mean, the other Memorial and Middle should be pretty
Every school,
clear.
even here, still has some.
Yeah.
Although probably the 95% was taken out of this school during the renovation, there's still items that are encapsulated in walls and so on.
Yeah.
That they'll never be touched. They're still on our HERA report. But the vast majority of the visible stuff is at center.
Yeah.
And that's why the focus is trying to change it. And it takes away, there's the health hazard we don't talk about, is, if you start getting all the chipping and the dusting, people get concerned, what is this, and it's legit. I mean, it's not gonna really hurt you, unless you start ingesting it and it becomes airborne and so on. But if it's gone, it's out of that mindset, we don't have to worry about it, and that's really the place to be. So I put in, in the budget folder in front of you. So, and I'm just going down exactly off this main spreadsheet, all right? So it's everything that's in the left corner of the tallies here, 2021. So put in there 25,000 for asbestos this coming fiscal year. Interior finishes 20,000. So what does that look like? Interior finishes. So this is center school on the left, that's the gym. It really needs a little refresh in there, We've done a lot, but it needs a little refresh. Look at the high school gym. Look at the difference, just from the quality. The bathroom facilities at Memorial, Middle, and Center really need a refresh. Go into them. Go into the commons down at middle school. Go into the boys' room, open the door, even the girls' room. We put in some LED lighting, just a couple LED lights because the other lights were shot. And what a difference. First off, we can take consumption level and drive right down. We can go to about 30% of the lighting that we had in there previous. And the quality of lighting is much, much better.
But the average restroom for the students, it's deplorable. I mean, maybe I'm being a little more, to me it is, because I have a standard that I would love to see the district at, you know? I mean, look around here, this is what it should be. This sends a message to everybody, including the students. And we're moving it, but it's a lot to move, you know, it's a lot to move. So some interior finishes we could accomplish. If you get to school safety and security, a great deal has been accomplished. A great deal has been accomplished. And we certainly, these are just some other interior finish pictures. Let me just jump through those, but you get an idea, you know, that's not the color you'd want. The picture to the left is really just to indicate the glass, the piece of glass where we put film on the glass. So you basically slow down penetration through the glass. So we did a lot of film in the district. We've upgraded the radios. We've got interoperability currently with the police department. We'll have to upgrade as they get their new radios on board. And we should be thinking like that because you want, you know, Dave here to be able to pick up and talk to a police car or Paul or I or somebody. It's a small force. And if we can be the person on the ground if we have an active incident, you want that interoperability. So that's something we've certainly moved to, and it's got a decent value to us. To the right, center school, that's a new security door that we had put in. And I show that more is that those are the type of upgrades that we're making to change. You got CCTV, that's a card reader, a fob reader on the door. We have application for a couple new ones. We would like to expand the CCTV. Rich has been looking, in fact, has just taken now the high school is on board, and it's Rich is better probably positioned to speak to it, but at least, you know, the police department have access to it now. They can pick it up on their phone. You know, I mean, that's where we should be in this day and age. Well, the other schools, we need to get there, and there has to be investment for CCTV as we go forward. So what I did is for school security, we put a $15,000 just to continue, and then you'll see, although I spoke to CCTV, 2022, you know, I put some money in there to start moving. So let me jump to the bottom line here really quick, because as I cross over to the next fiscal year, you'll see that I tried to maintain some fiscal stewardship by budget leveling, or trying to keep the capital in a reasonable level. It's about $200,000, and over, you know, each year, with the exception of 2023, where the roof at middle school really should be done. Now that 1.7 is simply a ballpark number based on what it is costing out in the school renovation community. Downs that did the work here ran a number for me just to give me an idea. There is reimbursement value there, and it might be able to be done for less. But we've got to put a number out there, a placeholder. But so then if we go down a little farther, you know, HVAC. Here again, we've made great strides. We're seeing a reduction, and Karen can speak to this, we're seeing a reduction in some of the maintenance on some of the HVAC equipment because we've started to replace it. We were spending a phenomenal amount of money upon my arrival here on HVAC repairs. The units are 1990. Everybody here tell me, is their air conditioner was put in their house in 1990? The answer is no, it's dead. It doesn't work. Your furnace has been replaced. You know, that's the type of equipment that was sitting at Middle, Memorial, and Center. Unbelievably performance. I mean, how good is that? You won't buy anything now that's going to last 30 years. There's no way, you know. But we do have equipment, and we've tried to just throw a number year on year and try to replace a unit. We replaced 2 units at Center School this summer. You know, we're just trying to just keep moving the bar. And it's more than just the replacement of the unit. We're getting efficiency. You know, our SEER rating's going up if it's an AC unit. Our efficiency ratings are up. Our energy consumption is going down. You know, so there's a benefit for that investment as well. But we need to be looking at this throughout the district. There's a lot of units on top. Just drive by the middle school, just stand back and look up and see how many units are sitting up there, you know. But you can see, you know, they just took some random pictures of some of the things that were replaced. They're getting old. They're very old. So with HVAC, here again, we were trying to get 35,000. I rolled it back to 25. Again, trying to balance, kind of budget leveling for capital year on year for the next 5 years. Then as you get into building automation, this is, whoops, I'm sorry, did I miss carpet and tile? Carpet and tile replacement is similar to the asbestos. Some of it's overlaying, but at Memorial School, it's all carpet. That was what was vogue for the school in 1990. They're really moving away from a lot of the carpet. It's problematic. And we've had to pull some up. We've had to pull some up in a couple of schools, depending on, challenges that come with carpet. So, this, you can see there's some, and the main lobby, it's worn, it's tired. Although we've got a big machine that we try to maintain it with, it's getting tired. Building automation, and this really aligns 100% with Rich's comments. Here we are, the building automation at Middle and Memorial that run the HVAC system is 1990 vintage. Guess what? They won't support anything. If it goes tomorrow, if we lose that system, we're going to be knocking at the Capital Committee and say, no, sorry, it's not 20 grand. No, it's not 50 grand. No, it's not 75 grand. We're going to be talking big bucks. So what I tried to do here is I've had a couple contractors look at it and say, how can we start to phase a thought process of, buying parts, pieces, starting to build a different infrastructure if we can. Or, if nothing else, put a dollar value in the budget that becomes almost like the track, where you're basically feeding it year on year to get to a certain number where we can replace it. But if we keep our head in the sand on this, it's coming. It's going to stop. It's not going to work. They won't support it. They won't repair it. It's done. That's just where we are with the building automation. So, as you can see, I only put 25,000 in, but I thought, okay, maybe I put it in 3 times over the next 5 years, and maybe we can do some upgrades. I had a contractor in last week just to look at it to give some thoughts, order of magnitude, just so we can start looking towards a replacement program. And if there's any questions, just holler. I'm just trying to do it visually here as well as numbers. So the other thing is, the pavement. How many people have their driveway that's been there for 30 years? 25 years? 20 years? It's a mess, isn't it, Mark? Yes, it is. It's just that simple. It doesn't last forever. Well, now it's an interesting thing right above Chris's head to the left. That pond is at middle school. That pond is brand new. That pond came when they pulled the oil tank out with the gas to oil to gas conversion, and the whole thing sunk. It's right in the handicap parking. Guess what? We really should fix it. Okay? It's okay right now, but the other day you could skate out of the handicap space. It's not safe. The sidewalk, the sidewalk is settled. It needs to be replaced. That's new, unfortunately. Okay, that's a new problem. But you look, this is the Memorial Drive. Did you go into Memorial School? Go around the back. This doesn't really depict all the problems with the sidewalks. The sidewalks, you've got spaces 4, 5, 6 inches. All we need is one workers' comp claim, all one fall. It's that simple. But to do just the sidewalk around the back, just to cut was like 10 grand. It's not here, guys. It's not here. So, here again, I'm not saying the sky is falling. It's just that if it isn't strategic, and if you're not thinking to manage this as a REIT, then there will come a point that you just, all of a sudden, everything's a major issue. So I'm just trying to give you that perspective. The track out back, they've had a sinking fund before my time at $15,000 a year. The last quote we got was about $250,000 to replace the whole track. So we're still about, and I'm going to do I don't have the exact number, but I think we're about 50,000 short right now. So a couple of years maybe. So it's good, at least it's been funded. This one isn't like, oh my gosh, we've got to take out $250,000, boom, that hurts. this can happen. This summer we spent about, everything's about 5 to 10 grand. We brought in a contractor and had him patch. Well, you can see what's happening here. It's just peeling up. Well, this is where the real problem is. See how it's just the degradation on the left? It's just falling apart. And I thought I had one other picture that was helpful. But it's rubber. It's just kind of coming apart. You can go out there with peel, but you don't want anybody to get hurt on it. So at least we're moving in the right direction. This is really good. This is in the next probably couple of years we can do this. But you can see it is significant. The tennis courts, same thing. Some sort of a sinking fund really should be funded. So I will scare you, really. If you want to go ahead and replace all 6 tennis courts, all the fencing and everything, 450 grand. You got a price? I got it with 450 grand. That's ridiculous. That's never going to happen. You're going to get rid of tennis courts. You're never going to spend $450,000 on tennis courts. They have a good program here, and people are playing on the tennis courts every day until the snow came down.
Yes.
So you can see what we've been doing. Patching. But here again, put a few dollars in there to start the concept of, let's see, can we do something for 100 grand in 4 years? Can we get out there? Can we do 25 grand, Can we get to a point where you can have a resurface? Can you do 50% of the tennis courts? Can you do something to make them safer? The cracks that are there, you twist your ankle on them. So it's just something that, I would be a bad steward for you as facilities director if I wasn't saying, you just got to be thinking, here's what we want to do. So I hope what I've presented you on the spreadsheet and then just in some pictures just gives you an indication of, I think these are items that we should focus on. And then you'll see the next year, 2022, I've got a couple other things we put in 2023. And just trying to keep a level capital as best as we can. And if that was a target, now something could blip, and it's beyond my control probably, but at least you have a thought process of going forward.
Can I ask Mark or Karen, was there the tennis sinking fund? That was never started? We don't have one?
I don't recall that being part of last year's capital plan.
Oh.
Yeah. So then I'll end with this, but these are just, these are pretty much other items that are on the list for long-range planning. Lighting replacements, LED lighting replacements. Oh my gosh, we can get about 50 to 60% reimbursement from Eversource right now, but still got to pay 40%. Okay, but we should jump on it. I was down at the Council of Government down in Essex for a meeting a couple weeks ago with Eversource, and there's opportunity there, and then you get some payback too at the same time. Building envelope, roof replacement, playground fall protection, just so we just don't deal with mulch all the time. Maybe we get some rubberized surface around the fall areas. We get the dividing wall, gym dividing wall down at middle school, the bleacher replacement at middle school, accessibility to the field down at middle school so we can have somewhat ADA accessibility, window drape replacements, general building infrastructure. Those are things that should be thought about as we go. So this is a summary of what is in the 2021. Any questions?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go.
How old is the roof at the middle school?
I believe the roof of the middle school is 1991.
Okay.
So,
And before the election, when people were coming in to talk about items that they wanted, there was some discussion about the baseball field and how it was flooding. That's not on here.
yeah, Jeremy's going to carry that in Park and Rec.
Okay.
So he's
And
working on that one.
Are we part of the fiber project that the town is doing? The fiber network?
The fiber
Are
network
we
that
part
the
of
town is
fiber
doing?
Project that they're doing?
Karen, you know anything about that?
Yeah, and to the library and.
No.
Okay.
My question was back to, sorry, go ahead. Back to the roof. So you're thinking 2023, a couple more years.
Yeah, and here's my logic, I'm pretty transparent. You know, you've had a big project sitting right here that we're in right now. You know, you carry the bonding cost, you know, just from a fiscal standpoint, you have the bonding cost that shows up. You have town hall that's gonna get a ribbon cut at some point. Then you've got the fiscal bump of that comes in. You know, we can, to put it right behind it is probably a tough one.
For reimbursement, which would be about 50%, this will have to go to referendum.
Yeah. So that's getting to my question. So if you're talking 2 years from now, we should probably start bumping this up to the council because they need to form a building committee to do this. We can't just say we need to put it in growth. So time frame, I mean, when should we start going to the council with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that, you know, strategically, I mean, this document that you have was intended for the finance committee as well for when they have their meeting. So it's there in front of them and they understand it. But, you know, for a roofing project, you know, a year out ahead of it, you're probably fine. It's pretty straightforward.
You would need to be in the budget, the state budget, 1 year prior. So if that's 2022, 23, by 21, 22, we would want to be active, get our application into the state.
A year from now, it needs to,
So whatever mobilization time, and how long would that be for a building committee? So you're saying that it needs to be approved by the state a year in advance?
Right, so the application needs to be put into the state.
Right, so we need a building committee in front of that for X amount of time, right? In order for that to get in.
Yeah, it's not a big application for a roof. It's not like a big building project. There's and it's its own division, roof replacement basically for schools.
Now, would we have to have a referendum first?
Yes. So the referendum was once again for the entire amount, 1.7, and then knowing that we would be reimbursed. Right. And you know, the reimbursement is pretty safe because, you know, like there's certain things that ends up not being reimbursable when they do a building project, but for the roof, you're doing a roof, basically.
So to Chris's point, this needs to be on town council's radar now.
Well, within, 6 months maybe?
Now.
Yeah.
Right, 2021 is coming up, so by 21, 22, we'd want to be moving this right along.
Okay.
Well, I made a note, raise the issue at the capital committee, we'll
Yep.
start there.
Yep. And then we'll start talking
And
to
you know,
council.
it has come up, and even one of the town council meetings last year, Mr. Phil Howard mentioned that, you know, he understands that, you know, the middle school roof is coming up, so it's on people's radar as a project that's going to need to be done. And you know, we are at the point where every rainstorm that, you know, is heavy and windy, you know, we do have a couple of barrels in the hallway.
I just don't want it to be another on everyone's radar like the center school boiler was for how many years. We can't get there.
And we've been, you know, investing a lot in, as soon as you get a warm day after we've had a rain, you know, we have somebody on the roof and we're trying to stay ahead of it. We've made significant strides, but if you went up and took a picture of it, it almost looks like a tennis field.
It's always bubble.
All right, any other questions? Yeah, Jim, you did.
The previous 5-year plan for the 21 to 25, is it comparable dollar amounts per year, a total?
I actually have it with me. Yeah, you know, there's obviously some tweaks that occurred. If I don't have it, I can get it to you.
So just as a first glance, does
I
it
saw
look
some
like
pictures on Facebook.
Yeah, you know what, I did not bring it with me.
Did we ever get a picture from him?
But by memory, it's comparable?
It was the Cape Journal.
Yeah, it's not.
We don't get it.
You know, it wasn't like we were shooting a 3/4 day in 1 year and an hour the next. Yeah, thank you.
John, just to clarify that point, what you requested was similar, not necessarily what was actually funded.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, yes, good point.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's a tough one. I mean, it would be best if this was funded at these levels on a very consistent basis. I think, you know, the community does better when it's, instead of spike and drop and spike and drop.
Well, your analogy of a house is perfect, because you let your house go to pot and you rush it down the way.
Yeah.
Well, we're sitting in the results of what happened 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the high school was at a point where it was going to get shut down. And, that's when the referendum of this
Let's act.
came up.
Yes.
Had there been more maintenance along the way?
Any other questions for,
Just please do me a favor.
Don?
If you haven't wandered through Center School, please go look, because I think, just go second floor and the first floor, and then look at the budget, and you'll see that the investment has been, it's night, absolutely night.
It really is. It's incredible.
Anything else for Rich while he's still here? Before he leaves? No? Okay. Thank you.
And if anybody would like to do a facilities walk,
I think we should.
Dawn will walk you through, show you the conditions of carpets, show you the condition of some of the flooring and things like that. And we'll take you on a tour of the new boiler if you have not seen it. I know
Yes.
people did a tour of the boiler prior to its replacement, but if you'd like to see the boiler post-replacement.
So here's a thought, and probably a pain nightmare, but since we started talking about communication and public relation kind of subgroup, what if we, and maybe I would think on weekends would be the most appropriate, or evening, try and set up public tours? They call, like your office set up, I'd like to visit the schools or this school.
If you could do it evening, that would be better than we're not paying overtime.
No, I want to make this easy, but let the public come in and see the
They need to
buildings.
see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to interfere with the school day.
Would it be appropriate, possible to, just take a walk and film? Like, take some videos or some pictures and post
We
it
could do
to
that.
social
Yeah,
media? And it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
negative or whatever.
No,
just
good, bad, show
realistic,
everything. Yeah.
Because, we could schedule that.
Yeah.
And some of the people that really need to see it may not
No,
be
exactly.
able to really.
Yep. Okay, I like that idea.
We could do a nice video.
Just like seeing your
Show
pictures.
Yeah. The library.
Oh, yeah.
level.
For the police station.
And the police station, yeah.
We can come and see what this is.
Okay, so you guys want to take that on? I think we have a consensus that we like that idea of doing a video kind of tour of the schools.
We would love to take it on.
Next week, when you're starting the budget?
Not till the budget is finished.
Maybe we could, I don't know if there are kids that, send them.
Could be a
out
high
there.
school project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
That's a really good.
Okay.
I just want to circle back a little to the technology. So my goal, as I go through this capital committee process and we move along in the budget, I am going to be a relentless pain in the butt about this issue. Because
Sorry.
to me, it's a
That's critical.
it's fundamental.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm going to ask, Public Works. All right, would you get a plow to remove snow and not have a blade on the front?
Right.
Right? Are we going to? I know there's going to be police cruisers in the capital community. I can guarantee there's going to be one or two. Chief, would you not buy all the technology equipment that goes in the cruiser?
Right.
Of course, the answer is going to be no. We have to have that. It's that simple. We have to have it. It's just a fundamental thing. Now, I'm not going to be able to tell you with 100% certainty that I'm going to be able to ram this through, but I'm going to be, every meeting, maybe multiple times every meeting, I'm going to remind them, this is fundamental. We have to have this to educate our children. Or else let's just stop. We'll call the state and say, you know what, we're not going to bother educating our kids. What are you going to do, Russ? Right? Because it's that stupid to not invest in this. And whether it's going to the Board of Finance meetings, Mr. Heinen, or going to the town council, because frankly, I've been in town for a long time, and I've seen a number of infuriating things. I was just beside myself when they cut
Last year.
this.
Right.
It's just ridiculous. And frankly, it was my party that did it, which made it even that much more infuriating. So I'm going to be, now again, I can't promise anything, other than I will be a relentless pain in it. Correct.
My concern is, we wouldn't put textbooks in the capital fund. Why are we putting something so far out of our control that we can't rein it in? We can't say, okay, now they're gone. What are we going to do? We've seen for the last 2 years what happens with that. And I know it would be a huge increase, but if we put those two capital budgets together, that's over $700,000 in
So,
capital.
Amy, just to answer that, from the person's point of view who develops the budget, sitting through the capital meetings, there was discussion. Because of the way the Chromebooks are purchased, capital has asked to keep Chromebooks in. That could be a conversation at our first meeting. If they want to turn Chromebooks back over to us, then we will put Chromebooks in our budget. But it was clear at the meeting that Chromebooks were going to stay in the capital budget. At the end of the day, even if they're in our budget, there are still people that have control over to the final amount. So they can look and say, you know what, I don't think you need all these Chromebooks, we're going to cut you $300,000. Now, they can't cut the line item, but they usually make it clear where it's what the cut's going to be. So, the cut has to come from somewhere. So if we cut $300,000 and that's what the Chromebooks are, the superintendent's going to recommend, we're going to have to cut the Chromebooks. We're still down 8 teachers from 2 years ago. So, I'm not putting aside infrastructure or Chromebooks, but, we're going to try to add 1 or 2 of those positions back. To get all 8 back, I just can't possibly sit here and give you that number and say, I'm proposing this many percent increase. I can't even say numbers larger than.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
So, I think we're at a critical juncture in budgeting. There's work to be done in the schools to keep the schools together. There's work to be done to make sure that we have the technical support for our students. And even at the classroom teacher and classroom supply level, there are needs. So we're at a critical, this is a pretty critical year coming up in budgeting after years of a 1.5% increase followed by a 1.75% increase. We have hacked away at everything that can be hacked away at. The budget that I present to you is still going to be bare bones, but it's not going to be in the ones.
Okay.
That was a long answer to your short question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any final comments or questions?
If we really had what I would define as a true bifurcated budget, and we went through our budget process and we said, okay, this is our Board of Ed budget and it's going to the voters. There was no other influence on it. Then I would be advocating for your proposal 100%. But I'm not sure that it really accomplishes anything. We still have to get it through the Board of Finance and the town council.
And even in that scenario, it would be articulated as GA and capital.
Right. Right.
But to wrap up the conversation, I promise the budget that I present to you in January, it will be a budget of value to the community.
Of course.
And it will be a budget of progress for our children.
There you
Progress.
Here, here.
Keyword. Okay. All right. With all that, again, thank you, Don, and he's still here. Good job. High school water. What do we have update on that?
Don, do you want to give a brief update on the water at the high school?
Sure, absolutely. There's been ongoing testing for copper. The past 4 tests have indicated a acceptable level of copper. We had 2 water fountains that showed a little bit high on the last test that we just did, which was water fountains only. And we think maybe just the device and the flushing maybe didn't meet the criteria that we wanted. So we're actually testing them again, I believe, this Friday. But we're pretty certain that we will be going to the Chatham Health District, hopefully as early as next week, and asking them to approve us to go back on the potable well here and get rid of the bottled water. Which is a positive step. Absolutely positive, plus the financial.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge. So it's a good move.
Great, thanks.
Okay, no programs, unfinished business. We don't have anything. New business. We have one policy, first read. So
One policy, because there was a lot of editing done on this one.
Yes.
I mentioned that we're going through the 9,000 series, and even though there's about 20 policies in the 9,000 series, we spent the whole hour on this one policy because it needed a lot of love and attention. Its last peak
About
was,
30 hours of work left.
yeah, it was adopted in 2003, and I think we've got nice contemporary language and appropriate language.
So the blues are the
Blues
removals,
are the strikeouts, and the
reds
reds will be new.
addition. Okay, so this will be on the agenda for our next meeting for second final read voting.
If you have any additional comments, you can email them to me or bring them up before you vote on them officially at the next meeting, which, by the way, is January 13th. We're not going to meet on December 23rd.
Yep. Okay. Next, we have our high school trip to Quebec City. High school, you want to talk about it? I know tradition, they go every year, the language class.
Every other
Is it
year.
every other? Oh.
Yeah, so this is for 2021.
Seems like every.
Mexico last year.
Right, so they alternate.
That's right, that's right.
North and south.
Yep.
Each year.
That's what I was thinking, it was a yearly trip, but different place. Okay.
So there's our semi-annual trip to Quebec City. For our semi-annual world language trip, we'll be a bus trip to Quebec City. We'll be moving on,
February 11th?
February 11th, and returning almost on the 14th or 15th. We're keeping with guidelines of 8 students to 1 adult or chaperones. I haven't been invited yet. Since I'm going to Washington DC next year, we'll see. But one of us will let them on the trip.
Yeah.
We'll, yes, once it's approved, have students begin the sign-up process and solicit interest so that we can get aware of what's going on and work that process.
And do they, just out of curiosity, for like the Washington trip, they start like payments ahead of time? Can they do that same option with this?
I believe there's a payment plan, and in keeping with what's requested from the Washington DC trip, we're not going to even ask for payments or put information out after the holidays.
Yeah.
Just as we talked about with DC being a pricey trip and expenses of the holidays, we're going to wait until February to start the payments for both those trips.
Nice. Any questions on any of this? So, do we have a motion to approve trip to Quebec City recommended by the high school principal and superintendent of schools for February 2021? Mark, Jeff, comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, future business. Anybody? Ideas, thoughts, anything coming up? You mentioned next Tuesday is the holiday party here at the high school, 2:30 to 5?
2:30 to 5.
Audience of citizens, couple we have left. Anything? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn. Mark, Amanda, second. Have a good night. Thank you.
I have to know that I was talking to a friend of mine who teaches in Penn State with me.